Welcome to the Pro Aging Podcast. I'm Steve Gurney, founder of the Positive Aging Community. We're excited that you can join us for our interactive discussions with pioneers and thought leaders on a wide variety of topics related to aging and longevity. We're able to bring these discussions to you along with copies of the Positive Aging Sourcebook thanks to the support of our Positive Aging Community champions. Visit proaging.com to connect with them and find hundreds of resources. Today we had a wonderful discussion with Paula Stone, who wrote the play Because She's My Mother. You can find the link to the play in the podcast notes or on proaging.com. All I can say is this is a wonderful discussion that I hope everyone will listen to and share. Paula talks about her personal journey caring for her mother and the inspiration and plotline of the play. She speaks about love, caring, pain, challenges, and the rewards so authentically. Most importantly, you can hear the value of mindfulness in her journey. So let's jump into a wonderful discussion with Paula. So I am thrilled about today's discussion topic, and you probably won't see something like this anywhere else, is that we're going to have a discussion with Paula Stone, and she wrote the play Because She's My Mother. And we're going to hear her story. We're going to hear the story of the play. You're going to be able to get a link to access a copy of the play. But I personally would love to see the topic of aging in more performing arts, whether it be documentaries, whether it be plays, whether it be improv performances, because I think when we basically when we see a performance, it enables us to now have a dialogue with our loved ones. And that's one of the most difficult things that we face as caregivers. So, Paula, first off, welcome. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. And before we dive into the play, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background. And I guess that conversation can kind of lead into what made you write this play and what the play is about and how we can access it.
Good. Thank you, Steve. It's really my great honor to be with you and the pro aging community this morning. I'm retired. I've been retired for a long time. My background is I actually am an engineer. I went to MIT. I have a PhD from MIT. I came to Washington soon thereafter and had a career in public service, both for federal government, Congress, in those days was not so contentious, and also for international agencies. My mother moved here in the late 90s. And when I retired, one of the things I did was I returned to a love that I had, which was for writing. I remember even as a little girl sitting on my bed, and I had a cast of characters all over the bed, and I was writing stories and she would be typing them up for me. But that all went on hold during my career. And when I retired, I went back to playwriting. And there was a wonderful playwriting group here in my community in Washington, D.C., wonderful teacher and dramaturge. And I was writing plays. And then my mother started to fail. This was in now already the 2012 or so. She died. She was age 98, and I was the frontline caregiver for her. But I was already writing plays by that time, and it was the obvious thing to do. It was something I was getting to know a lot about.
Wow. Okay. Well, hearing real life stories of what people went through as a caregiver is something that really resonates with our audience here in these discussions. I want to dive into the play, but if you're okay with it, can you tell us a little bit about the journey of caring for your mom? So you mentioned that you were working at the time, correct?
No, I had retired by then.
Oh, okay.
And I was writing plays by then.
Wow. So, okay. So you're retired and where are you living?
I'm in the DC area,
Okay.
and my mother had moved here. My husband had commuted to take care of his parents down to Florida and was very supportive of my not commuting. So she did move here. I
Now,
was
when
retired.
mom moved here, where did she move from? And did she move into your home?
No, no, no.
Okay.
She was down in Florida. We moved her to the Washington area. I had a condominium here that I gave to her basically to live in. And my husband and I lived in the area.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So now life is great right now. Okay. So you've got mom is in the area. You're taking your playwriting, you're retired. When did things start to change that would sort of make you self-define yourself as a caregiver?
Well, I would say probably, I'm guessing maybe around 2010 maybe, because I was starting to having to do more and more for her.
Okay.
And
And like,
I kind of saw myself as being mobile assisted living,
yeah.
shopping and making sure she was okay and running over to the apartment. And
So, this is, folks, we're going to get to the play, but I like walking through these caregiver stories because there's little nuggets in there that can make other caregivers feel more empowered. And one of the things, when you described the things that you were doing, there's nothing healthcare about it. It's like errands and it's things like that, correct? I mean, taking her to the doctor appointment, but I think one of the challenges that we often, when we think about caregiving, we migrate towards sort of medical things naturally, and a lot of this is shopping and getting around, transportation and things like that. Um, did when
And she was totally there mentally. And I remember having conversations with her later in her life where she, how did she feel about being mentally aware of what was happening to her, as opposed to so many other people who have challenges with their parents that are not totally there. And she always
cognitive?
said to me she was glad she knew what was happening.
That's great.
I
And
don't know. It
well,
was hard.
well, let's talk about that. So I'm assuming there was some healthcare issues that your mom started facing. What did those look like?
Well, she had a couple of falls. She was just getting more fragile.
Okay.
I was taking her shopping and it was becoming more difficult. And I would say, if I was to sum this up, went from mobile assisted living, but I would say that being a caregiver was the hardest thing I ever did.
Hmm.
And you have to remember, I came from an experience, I was an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I was used to an experience and a career where I knew if I worked hard enough, if I worked long enough, if I got all the resources together that I needed, I could fix the problem.
Yeah.
I could solve the problem. And suddenly I was in an experience that, what is the end game for this? My mother was going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the vulnerability. That is the nature of all of this, is that you're face to face with the reality of what it means to be human, which is to grow old, to become sick, and to die. And this was not part of my experience. My own father had dropped dead when I was 25. I was overseas at the time. I didn't have to face any of that except just the shock of it. And now I was in an experience that was totally humbling for me, that
Man.
I had to figure out a different way of being with myself, with her, with the nature of life.
And
And yeah.
Man, you said a few things there that I want to hone in on. Is that number one is that this thing that we called life is not a math equation. Like, there's usually one or two ways to solve a calculus problem. Okay. There's really supposed to only be one, I think, right? Uh,
That's
and
fine.
and so many of us, we want to make our life a calculus problem. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, and this is what's going to happen. And the you just sort of stated, I mean, no matter what we do, how much we plan, how healthy we live our lives, we may wake up one morning or not wake up one morning or get hit by a bus or what have you, or have a more drawn out health issues as we grow older that sort of put a strain on our support system. And
I would add something to that too, Steve. You know, when we're growing up, we learn certain strategies for how to deal with situations that are uncertain, that are threatening, that are scary. We learn how to protect ourselves. And some of those strategies include getting busy with work, numbing ourselves, getting angry, walking out, shutting down, going AWOL. There are all kinds of strategies that we use and have been using to protect ourselves. And they made sense maybe at one point in our lives. And then we get to a point where, are these strategies really working for us as a mature person, as an as an adult son or daughter? Is this how we want to be with this experience of life? And I was also very fortunate. Another piece of the puzzle for me is when I retired, I also became interested in mindfulness. Now, I'm a person who's always lived in her head. Many people have always lived in their heads. And what mindfulness did for me was it enabled me to kind of get out of living in my head, which is living in the past, or we're projecting into the future, or we're making up stories about how life is or should be or could be. Mindfulness helped me to start practicing to see what's happening clearly as it's happening in the moment. And that practice, I think, was also very instrumental for me to begin to develop a type of intimacy with the wholeness of who I am, the wholeness of the relationships I have, a sense of relationship with the nature of life that wasn't about planning and strategizing and doing formula calculations. It was about being here and now. And that was a very important piece of my journey and my growth, my maturing.
wow, you're I know today you're going to be an inspiration to us in terms of being a caregiver, but just in the way that you have reinvented yourself in retirement, and attention to mindfulness and creativity are two very healthy practices. And I want to read this comment that Patricia Dubroff wrote. She said, as an advocate of using creativity to heal, Paula's playwriting gave her that balance through this experience, and her gift of this play helps others learn about the relationship from transitioning parents. Thank you. And she also comments, we plan our lives, yet anything can happen. But that's why we have to plan. We can't give up on planning because it helps us prepare for the future. And
there's a wonderful expression, Steve. Planning are temporary measures we take until whatever happens, happens.
yeah, Yep.
So you plan, but I hope you have a plan B and a plan C, and it might be that none of those things happen. Did I ever think my mother was going to live to be 98, for
No.
example?
No, this is great. So, okay. So we got a little taste of your personal caregiving experience, your attention to mindfulness, and the fact that you had this little hobby of playwriting. And I tell you what, as you were talking about your personal caregiving journey, it almost sounded it sounded like something out of Hollywood to me for whatever reason. You know, so tell me, what inspired you to write this play, Because She's My Mother, which I've dropped the link to in chat, and tell us about this journey that you took and some of the stories that this play tells.
Right. Well, I started writing the play really because I was writing plays, and it was a natural thing for me to be writing about. Even as a little girl, I kept journals, I had diaries. I was always very introspective and always had an interest in what makes people tick. And I started writing not really with the intention of writing a play that was going to go anywhere, but as much to begin to sort through, to begin to untangle my own feelings about what was happening. There's such a spectrum of feelings that one has, and it can be confusing, it can be frustrating. And so it was just a way for me to sort through things. I was in a very supportive playwriting group, and they began to help me really craft something that would have what we say is legs, something that would perhaps be of interest to other people. The very first draft of this play, I looked it up in preparation for today, was 2011. Next drafts were 14, 15, 17. I got my first copyright, 18, 20, 22. It's not like you just sit down and write a play and there it is. The initial draft's the easy part. It's the editing and the re-editing, and characters were in the play, characters left the play, scenes were in the play, scenes left the play. We had readings, what we called in-house readings, we had professional actors come in and read it to small groups of people. And then the play got to a stage of development where we could start having public readings, and people would comment. I would facilitate conversations after the play with audience members, and people would tell their stories. And there was somebody I remember crying, and it gave me a certain motivation to keep at it, despite all these years. It was hard to write it because, look, I had the hardest part in a way of my writing this was to get myself out of the way so that the characters could tell their stories. I was writing, in addition to the play, I was writing biographies of the characters because I had to know these characters really well so that they could tell their stories and they could interact, and it could tap into that universality that caregiving is. There's a wonderful quote from Rosalind Carter, and she said, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those that have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who are going to be caregivers, and those who are going to need caregivers. This has so many universal themes to it, and that was the challenge. There are a lot of things this play doesn't cover. The play does not, for example, cover how rewarding caregiving can be for some people. And it also doesn't cover the sandwich generation, people who are also taking care of spouses, as well as mothers and children and grandchildren and adult children. They're just, I had to focus on something. And so I focused really on the daughter and Liz and Ida and what they were going through.
Now, I want to say we've been communicating for years. Uh, correct. I like you reached out to me many years ago, and one of the things when I heard what you were doing, I was like, oh, I know some people that work in senior living that are in performing arts. And I was like, this is awesome. I've been waiting for somebody to do something like this. And I know that you went through these iterations that you just described, but ultimately this play has been produced, but like many theaters, you've done it virtually, correct?
Well, I was looking before, yeah, we were first in contact before COVID.
Yeah.
My aspiration was always to be of benefit and reach as many people as I could. We were having public readings of the play. And then through word of mouth, I was getting requests for readings. They were very time consuming and expensive for me to put up. I was trying to see if we could get a theater interested, but even a theater, it's a very limited audience and a very limited run. And then COVID happened. And in some ways, it was a wonderful thing for this play because I found play Zoomers. They were interested in the script. And I was able, through their generosity, all the actors had to sign releases to enable me to stream this for a finite amount of time, but to stream it at no charge as a community service. So that I found Play Zoomers, which really they were wonderful to work with, a wonderful cast. We got the recording done, and it can reach more people now than I ever could have been able to do in the theater, in
Love
my
it.
theater.
I love it. And I've dropped the link into chat, and also this discussion is being recorded. So you'll be able to access the play and this recording later today and forever. And so tell us, give folks who haven't watched the play a little sort of storyline of some of the challenges that the characters are faced with in the play that people might identify with.
Well, the play starts with the mother having fallen. Liz, the daughter, is used to pleasing her mother. She considers herself to be her mother's plan. She just assumes she's her mother's plan, much to the chagrin of her husband. Ida is very dependent on Liz. And the starting point is we have the mother who is becoming increasingly fragile, the daughter who wants to please her, and we have to go through an arc, a development of each of these characters until Liz can be able to stand on her own feet and claim her life. At the beginning, you see her, she's very burnt out. She feels this is going to go on forever. She's overwhelmed. She doesn't know how to let go. She doesn't know how to say no to her mother. She's taking her shopping. She wants to have her mother look at other places where she might be able to live, because she can't live really safely by herself anymore. Her mother refuses. And so Liz has to learn how to start letting go. And that's part of the arc of her development. And actually the highlight of that is when she's finally able to look in the mirror and say to herself, Liz, you were not put on this planet to please your mother. And it's at that stage where she is learning to say no. And of course, Ida senses that. She's not used to having her daughter say no to her. So part of Ida's development is being able to accept that she is going to be more dependent, that she can't cook and clean and do all those things for herself forever. Liz finally is forced in a way to move Ida into a residence. Ida won't go on her own, and Liz does it after a second hospital stay, which gives her an opportunity to move her. And Ida has a crisis. This is not who I am. She doesn't want to be with old people. Pushing a walker is not who I am. They take her vitamin C from her. They take her scissors from her. Like she's in nursery school. She feels sentenced to living the rest of her life in one room. I think part of the challenge of this script for me was not only being able to have people see this journey from the vantage point of the caregiver, but also from the care recipient. Can we walk in the other person's shoes? There's a line in the play, particularly, that's very poignant to me. When Liz and she have an argument again about Ida living in this residence now. And Liz says to her, I'm not gonna feel guilty about this for trying to keep you safe. And Ida says, well, you should feel guilty. A little guilt never hurt anybody, and it would prove to me that you care. And Liz also says, well, I have to do this. I have to do this for you. And Ida she can't handle it. And she's angry. And finally, Liz isn't going to put up fighting with her. Don't be angry at me, be angry at life. And Ida says to her, who else can I be angry at but you? And I want to say something about that line, because that is a very personal line for me. I remember after my mother moved into a residence, there was a time she was very angry at me. And I took it very personally. I was very upset by that. And I remember going down to the director. I left and I was very upset, and I saw the director and I said, I don't get it. I mean, here I've done all these things for my mother and she's angry. Why is she angry at me? And the director looked at me and she said, who else can she be angry at but you? And for me, I've always remembered that line. It was a big shift for me, because it was the beginning. I won't say it was the beginning, but it gave me some space around my own stuff so that I could begin to walk more fully in her shoes and see life more fully from her point of view and her own vulnerability. And this is the journey Ida takes, to be able to face up to her own vulnerability. I think I kind of left your question behind in the dust someplace, but I would say that Ida's development, when Liz starts to back off, Ida feels that, and she looks to Norman. Norman is another resident in the facility. She looks to Norman to rescue her, to give her a sense of something to look forward to in life. And it turns out Norman can't really do that for her. He has his happy place. He wants her to go to his happy place with her. And Ida begins to realize that she can't do that. And she says, one place in the play, she says, when she realizes that Norman can't save her, she says, damn. And in that moment, Ida realizes she is going to have to figure out how she's going to handle being old and frail. And now this is her life. And who is she? Who is she now that all those identities that she's had throughout her life she simply can't, that's not who she is anymore. So
Wow.
who is she?
Man, this is like I, this like inside the actor's studio. It's so great to hear you talk about this with such passion, and it's clear that these stories have real personal value, and that you've thought about them over many years to
Years, yeah.
to create
And
the
other
finished
people,
product.
and other people have shared with me such intimate moments. Um, so it's a really an amalgam. I mean, that's
Well,
one
yeah,
piece, but
and
so many others too.
so in you sharing the the journey of writing this play and getting it produced, and telling your own personal story, it really is a mirror at on some of the discussions that we have on a weekly basis. So for example, I had said at the beginning of this, solo aging is our number one topic. And you know, as you kind of summarized your mom's experience, is that, you know, so often we try to grab at anybody we can either blame, or somebody to take care of us, or to do this, or why me. And the thing that I like about the solo aging conversations is they're minimized putting us in the place that your mom was in, where let's, because I think ultimately, or well, the character, I shouldn't say your mom, but the character in the play is that we all need to take ownership at some level of our future. Uh and you know, ideally we all want to do that before we leave this planet. You know, there's nothing sadder than somebody who doesn't come to that realization uh before they leave the planet. um
Yeah, you know, Steve, one of the things, this is again where mindfulness has been so helpful to me. One of the things that I've been integrating over the years is that there's so many things we have no control over, but one of the things we do have control over is how we're going to relate to whatever it is that happens to us. And I've learned, the more I've thought about the play and been talking to audiences, I've come to realize that in some ways, being a caregiver or a care recipient are two sides of the same coin. Because ultimately, we have to make a decision as to how are we going to relate to whatever it is that happens to us, whether we're the caregiver or the care recipient. And a lot of that has to deal with how are we going to find shelter within our own hearts? How are we going to take care of ourselves? How are we going to find things in life that nourish us, that nurture us, that give us a sense of meaning, no matter where we are in our lives, whether it's a caregiver, a care recipient, or anything else in life, really? How are we going to relate to it? What are we going to do? And it's none too soon to start bringing awareness to the way we react, to the ways we go on automatic. Is this what we want to bring to our lives? Is this what living a full, meaningful life is for us? Life is so precious. We want to live it as fully as we can. And if we're always reacting and shutting down or so forth, we're losing touch with our humanness, with our humanity, with the fullness of what it means to be alive. So it's never too soon to start cultivating the qualities that we will need to accompany us throughout our lives. And it has to do with patience. It has to do with loving kindness. It has to do with tenderness and spaciousness and bringing a humor if we can. Generosity. I saw an earlier chat from Patricia pop up on the screen, and Patricia has been really one of the great champions of me as a creative person, and I'm very grateful for that. But we have to learn how to manage this time of our lives with as much grace as we can. I mean, this is our humanness. And it's interesting too, as we practice this, and it takes practice. I mean, I've been doing mindfulness for years and I'm still practicing. And it is a practice. It is a journey. It's a journey of becoming more intimate with ourselves and our lives. And I want to say that part of the journey of the play for me was, how do I find meaning in my own struggle?
Mm-hmm.
How do I find meaning in this? And the play began to take on a life of its own, because for me, it was a way for me to find meaning in my own struggles. This was part of my prayer, part of my wish, part of my aspiration was, may this script somehow be of benefit to someone else.
Man, I love it. And your thoughts are so deep on this subject, but they're so inspirational. And let's see. Well, let me read a few of the chats. First off, Patricia, you get a gold star for all the great resources you're sharing today. But I dropped in, and I want to try to get a show going with this guy. Steve Little wrote the Dementia Melodies based on his time working as a musician in assisted living, and he's been performing that. I put a link in there. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on, Paula, is just for this, is that this can be inspiring for us to find all the other artists that are out there sharing their stories in unique ways on this topic. Actually, I think in June, we're going to be spotlighting a gentleman that creates theater companies in senior living communities, and they perform these plays that are telling the stories of the residents. So he sort of coaches the residents on presenting their life story as an act in a play, and then they perform it. And I was just, when I heard this, I was just like, this is amazing, so Dementia Melodies there. Let's see. Francis says, I was on the front line, albeit long distance caregiver for both my parents, one who passed away 10 years ago and the other 5 years ago. As the years go by and my husband and I get older and more frail, I realize that our children will inevitably play a caregiving role for us. I mean, I knew this theoretically, but now it feels like a looming reality. I think we will ask our grown children to watch Paula's play with us. I'm sure it will result in a very important and much needed family conversation. Francis, if I wasn't here in this dining room, if I was back at home in my main office, you would have seen a tear drop from my eye. I love this. If we can touch one person with Paula's play and this discussion, I think that is absolutely a home run out of the park.
Well, that was always, I tell you, that was my aspiration. It's not just for people to stimulate personal reflection about these issues, but to have conversation about it. I mean, it's so hard to even think about these things, let alone being able to talk about them until the boom hits and you're in the middle of it. And now what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the extent to which, but I think it's very important to add, it's hard. it's very hard for people, and we need to be so so patient with ourselves and so kind with ourselves. It's understandable. It's understandable that it's hard. Everybody comes from their own experience. You look in the play and you see these two sisters, and they've had totally different experiences growing up. And it's understandable that each one is struggling in their own ways, whether you like them or not. Not everybody likes Ellen, but she plays an important role in her own life and her being able to make her own decisions. So we have to be gentle with ourselves. It takes time.
Yep.
It takes patience. It takes just a lot of kindness
Oh,
and compassion
yep.
with ourselves. And I think that's been one of the biggest dimensions of my own journey was self-compassion, because it is hard, and let it be hard. Don't try to pretend it's not. Ouch, it hurts. And that's the starting point. You have to start wherever it is you are, and then bring as much kindness and awareness as you can to it.
So here Mary says, I totally relate. I am Liz. My mother is Ida, age 87. Also, I'm an engineer like Paula. My question to Paula is, did you have any siblings that could help your mother out? My siblings are deceased, and I feel my mother is angry at me and has expectations of me.
Yeah, my brother was not in town, and he did as much as he could. He had so many other commitments, and I didn't always get that at the time, because I was burnt out, and I have a lot more maturity looking back now at the situation. But he did what he could. He had a lot of things on his plate. I was local. I don't have children. It often falls on those children who, I was retired. It was understandable that I was the chosen one for this task.
Yeah, and Mary, you've talked about this a lot today, is who we're going to be angry at. And I think the tough thing is, Mary, I think you're probably a living, breathing example of this. You're the one doing all the hard work. You're loving her. You're doing what you should, and she's angry, and you're the only one she can get angry at. And it's, I don't, again, I think first, being aware of that. Second, if there's a way to have a dialogue somehow, it may take a third party to let us release that anger. Because, Paula, the reverse happens too, is that where the adult child gets angry at mom, and mom didn't do anything wrong. She's just, she's got this, dementia. And it's so frustrating. But I really think, I guess if you could wave a magic wand, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but if I could wave a magic wand after hearing your story and the personal journey you've gone on, I'm envisioning you and your mother together in mindfulness classes together, experiencing that together, and what the aging journey might look like if you had two mindful people playing this game called life.
I'm wondering whether one mindful person can be enough. And I say that because there's a wonderful expression. I believe it was Woody Allen who said, 80% of life is showing up. So what does it mean to show up? Okay. You want to bring your whole self to an experience. So what does showing up mean? Does it mean you only have to bring half of yourself to the experience and you're going to leave the other half outside the door? Or are you going to bring your whole self? You can have a long discussion about that. But I want to ask, What about the other 20%? What happens when you have shown up? What does that 20% look like? And I would argue, not argue, what I've learned is that 20% has to do with just being a loving presence. It's not about bringing conditions. It's not about bringing expectations. It's not, in many ways, it's not personal. This is what life is. It's looking into the face of death. People who have taken care of their parents who are on this call, they've seen their parents not being able to brush their teeth, not being able to tie a shoelace, not being able to button a button. This is what it is, and it's not personal. If we can come just with an open, undefended heart, without all the ways in which we try to protect ourselves and keep ourselves from feeling things, if we can just be there and let our loved ones be seen and heard. That's all I think we've all ever wanted, any of us, from the moment we were born, is to be seen and heard. And when you can offer that kind of loving presence to someone, magical things start to happen, wonderful things start to happen.
And
it's hard.
Yeah. And
that aspiration.
Yeah. And I feel that, especially when somebody enters this world of elder care, this bizarre, wacky world of elder care, as much as we try to be progressive and take steps to involve them in this, it has the opposite effect, that they're not able to be seen and to be heard on the level that we all aspire to at really one of the most important times in our life, because we begin to realize that, I may not be around that much longer. And Mary, I know that there's no one answer to your question, but I love hearing Paula talk, and hopefully this gave you a few ideas and inspirations on how you can get unstuck with your mom. Paula, I hope you're okay. I dropped your email into chat because I know your goal is, let's get this play out there, and let's get people using it and sharing how they used it with you, and do more of that. So I hope it's okay for folks to reach out to you. I assume it is.
Yeah, I don't want to be overwhelmed by that. I mean,
oh, don't worry. You're not on CNN. You're on
okay.
Steve Gurney, Pro Aging.
I think an important message of the play, I rewrote the ending a number of times. But the end, the one I settled on, was really the one that communicates the idea of don't wait. Here is Liz. If the last scenes of them together, Liz has finally worked up the boundaries that will enable her to go away with her husband for some respite. She's going to go to Hawaii, a place she's always wanted to go, for her birthday. What was I going to say? So she has this last meeting with her mother, and she's rehearsed it. She knows what she wants to say. She knows what she wants to communicate. She knows how she wants that last meeting to go. And what happens? Well, she goes to see her mother. Well, her mother has a different script in mind. It's not the script that Liz had in mind. And what happens is Ida makes a confession to her about how she knew she had to move, but couldn't do it on her own. And Liz is so angry, so reactive. She goes into that automatic phase again. She can't even say goodbye. And so what does she do? She storms out. And it's not until she's in Hawaii that she's able to have the distance and the perspective to be able to say, it's not how I want it to end. This isn't how I want it to be. I want to be able to say that I love her, to forgive her. This is what I need. She's been able to somehow wake up out of this trance of reactivity and to say what she wants. And you know what? It's too late. The phone call comes in. Don't wait. It's hard, but we have to realize that we may not get other chances. How do we want to be with this? What will you do when you're in a situation that's out of your control? How do you want to be with it? Cultivate those qualities now with as much compassion for the other, for oneself, as you can possibly bring.
Man, this has been great. And some of the comments that I'm reading here, mobile assisted living. I love this session and I cannot wait to view this play. Good idea to watch it with my daughter. Then they will know what my life is like taking care of their grandparents. And Susan says, thank you for commenting on needing a respite. I can't go with my husband on many trips, and it's frustrating for both of us. My mom lives in the same house as we do and does not want someone to come in and babysit her. And Adele says, I'm too sad. This brought back so many memories. But Adele, I happen to know Adele, and she has children. And Adele, like, your play is not over yet. That is the memories of being a caregiver and what have you. But I think the point of your play is to inspire people to take action now, is that because we've got a limited time here.
And also compassion. This is a human experience. It's not you alone. You don't have, we all have our unique experiences, but we're in this together. There's an expression, being alone together. It isn't just you that's had a hard time. We all have hard times. And to be able to take some courage and confidence in knowing that we're all in this boat together. Not that they can solve your problems. This play isn't meant to solve anybody's problem. What it's meant is to raise questions. Is this how we want our lives to unfold? Compassion. To me, that's the bottom line. It's just holding oneself with compassion and care.
Man.
And forgiveness. Forgiven. And it's, suffering is hindsight. When we're in a situation where we bring the best that we can, and to second guess that later on when we know more and we've grown more and matured more, it's suffering. It's suffering.
Man.
Paula, it reminded me of something else that I was hoping I'd have a chance to say. And I hope the play will bring this up as people think about it. We use a lot of terms very loosely. Oh, I want to be a good daughter. I want to be a good son. I'm going to do the right thing, right? I'm going to let my conscience be my guide. I'm going to honor my father and my mother. What do those terms mean? What does it mean to do your best? What does that mean? To do your best can mean a lot of suffering. One has to be very, very mindful of the way we use these terms. Oh, I'm going to do this is the right thing for me to do. In the play, there's a place where Liz wants to move her mother into their house, and because it's the right thing to do. And her husband says, what the hell does that mean, the right thing? Is it right for you? Is it right for me? Is it right for our marriage? And who's judging this anyway? What does it mean to do the right thing? Ask the question. Make that inquiry. Delve into that. What does it really mean to you? Or do your best. In these discussions, I've had people offer alternatives to doing your best. Doing your reasonable best. reasonable best. It gives you some space to balance your life. You know, your life is going by as you're being a caregiver, you know, it's going by as well. So, being a good daughter. What about being a good enough daughter or a good enough son? What does it mean? I'm not answering these, but I would say before we just automatically use these phrases, stop, pause. One of the most powerful things you can do that I've learned is to pause and pay attention to what you're saying, what you mean. Take a full couple of deep breaths, feel your tushy on the seat, feel your feet on the floor, get yourself grounded into what it is that's happening now in this moment and what it is you're bringing to this experience that is perhaps not being loving to yourself. You're gone, Steve. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, here I am.
Here you are.
I just glanced at the clock and I can't, that's 1 hour that went by really quick, and I could sit there. I could listen to you all day, Paula. And the fact that you're an MIT engineer that wrote a play, if you ever decide to go into the business of therapy and counseling, sign me up as your first client, because I love the way that you communicate. And I almost feel, I've done over 300 of these discussions, and I almost feel like what you did in talking about your play and your caregiving experience is take all 300 of them and all these topics that we talk about and somehow synthesize it into 1 hour. And this was wonderful, and I'm glad to see that some folks in chat feel the same way.
Well, that's very gratifying to me. You know, I think it's very important in this conversation that I'm not a therapist, because the fact that caregiving is hard doesn't mean there's something wrong with you.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
It's hard. It's part of life, and it's a hard experience. And I don't want people to think, oh, you know, if you have a therapist talk to you, there's something wrong. And that's not to say you shouldn't get help. You know,
No.
there are times you need support and you need professional intervention, and you need to do that. You need to take care of yourself.
Let's say that I'll buy you a cup of coffee any day to have another conversation like this. And actually, you make up a really, really important point, is that in general, there's a stigma against mental health support for a lot of people out there. It's why the whole coaching profession exists, because people don't want to go to therapists, even if it could be helpful. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, was because for a lot of us, some of the best therapy is watching a movie on a difficult topic, going to a play that discusses a difficult topic, and reflecting on performing arts, looking at a painting that brings out emotions, and then going and talking about it. So I edit my previous statement about therapy. I don't want you to be a therapist. I want you to continue writing plays, and I want to be able to buy you a cup of coffee one day and
I look forward to
thoughts
that
with you. Okay, folks, this is fantastic. And everybody have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you. Thanks. And thanks everybody for coming.